Hello students, so welcome back to this video. So I think this is a video part number 6 for you, right? So we were discussing about the lasers in all previous 5 videos, okay? So in that last video particularly, I have discussed what are the main components required for a laser, right? So basic requirements or basic requisites also we can say to produce a laser in the using a device, okay? So if you come across various types of lasers, okay, so in general you can classify them as solid state laser, okay, liquid laser and gaseous laser, okay, and even you will come across solid state diode laser also, okay. So these are general classification of various types of laser devices, okay. Now in this video particularly I am going to discuss one of the example of solid state laser, okay. So this is very basic and very easy to understand for you and very well known also, okay. So this is called ruby laser. So this particular ruby laser is developed by a scientist called Maimon in 1960, okay. So we can say the ruby laser is fabricated by Maimon in 1960, okay. So now let us try to understand what is the construction, the basic construction of a ruby laser and then how it is working to produce the laser also, okay. Now let us see the construction part here. So look at the diagram. So what I am considering here is, so in case of ruby laser, first of all you should have a ruby crystal, okay. Now a ruby crystal is taken in the form of a cylindrical shape like this, okay. You can see that it is like a cylindrical form of a ruby crystal, okay. Ruby crystal in the sense it is a compound consisting of Al2O3 plus Cr2O3. What do you mean by that? So aluminum oxide, basically the crystal is consisting of aluminum oxide in it, in which it is slightly doped by the chromium oxide, okay. So in the combination of Al2O3 plus Cr2O3, the chromium ions, whatever the impurity chromium ions present in the ruby crystal are the very important active materials here, okay. Active centers also we can say, chromium ions are active centers in the ruby crystal, whereas aluminum oxide is working like a host material, okay. As I said in the basic requirements, we should have the host material in which again some of the atoms should behave as a active atoms here, okay. Active centers are active atoms. So in which we can consider in case of ruby crystal, chromium ions are active centers, okay. Now that kind of ruby crystal is in the form of cylindrical shape, and you see the two ends of the cylinders are cut in such a way that, okay, both the ends of the ruby crystal are cut in the in such a way that, okay, so they are highly polished, okay, fine polished. So one side is highly polished in the sense you can say 100% it is polished, other side it is partially polished, okay. So we can write partially silvered, or this side it is 100% silvered, okay. I will tell you why this kind of partial silvered at one side and 100% silvered is required later, okay. So that is behaving like a reflecting mirrors in fact, okay, because we need to create a resonant cavity, so between these two ends, okay, we can have the resonant cavity in the crystal. So that kind of ruby crystal is further, you can see that it is surrounded by some flash lamp. So this is actually called helical xenon flash lamp, okay. So helical xenon flash lamp is further connected to a circuit, so we can have a capacitor here parallel to the battery, and to control the current we have a resistor, and then so this arrangement is required to pass the current through the helical flash lamp to give the maximum power, maximum light power to pump the atoms here. So you know that one of the technique required here is pumping, okay. So when the light is incident on the atoms, it is considered as optical pumping, clear. So for the purpose of optical pumping, we are using helical xenon flash lamp here, okay. It is surrounded around the ruby crystal, okay. And then so the brief construction I am explained here already. You see that it consisting of a single cylindrical crystal of ruby whose ends were flat, okay. So like this flat, and one of which is completely silvered and the other one is partially silvered, okay. So this is required to produce the required resonant cavity called Fabry-Perot resonator, okay. And then the active medium is, as I told, Al2O3 plus Cr2O3. So impurity should be there in that. Active centers are chromium ions and Al2O3 acts as host lattice in the crystal. Then ruby rod is surrounded by a helical xenon flash tube. So with power supply to provide the optical pumping. So that is for the excitation. Okay, it is considered as exciting system. Is it clear? Now let us try to understand how the ruby laser works to produce the lasers. So with the help of this energy level diagram, so we can understand how the lasers are produced in the ruby crystal. Okay. So look at this diagram. Basically it is a energy level diagram of chromium ions present in the ruby crystal. Okay, as I told, the cylindrical ruby crystal consisting of aluminum oxide and the impurities of chromium ions, right? That chromium ions are actually the active centers. So surrounded by the ruby crystal is surrounded by helical flash lamp, I told. Okay, so that is what actually doing the pumping mechanism. So whenever the high intensity light is produced by helical flash lamp incident on the crystal, okay, immediately what happens, the chromium ions gets excited. So initially they are present in the ground state. So when the high energy photons, okay, are incident on the chromium ions, that is called actually pumping technique, okay, optical pumping technique. So chromium ions gets excited, means they will excite from ground state to excited states. Okay, so actually we have 3-level energy system for chromium ions. So that is what actually I am showing here. So this is the ground level of the chromium ions, and these are the excited energy levels E1 and E2, and in between the excited states and ground state we have one intermediate state, that is called actually metastable state. Okay, so what is the difference between this ground state and excited states and metastable state? You know, the ground state means initially when the chromium atoms are not excited at all. Okay, so they will be present in the ground state only. So now once they get excited due to the optical pumping with the help of pump photons, you know, so pump photons will be in the visible range, the wavelength of the light will be in the visible range. What is the visible range wavelength? So that is 4000 angstrom to 6600 angstrom unit. Okay, so depending upon the absorption of that photon energy by the chromiums, so they get excited. Okay, then they will change the states also. So they will move from ground state to the excited state. So that is what I am showing in the form of the excited transitions, upward transitions you can see here. Okay, so some of the atoms will go to the excited state E1 and some of the chromium atoms will be excited to the energy level E2. So both are excited states. Okay, so in this energy level diagram we have to understand that the excited chromium ions, okay, will go to the energy levels E1 and E2, but within a very short period, okay, very short interval of time, because the energy levels will not sustain the atoms in the excited state for a long time. The lifetime of the chromium ions in the excited state is very short, that is in the order of 10 to the power of -8 seconds. Okay, so even less than that also. So what happens then, the excited chromium atoms has to come down to ground state, right? But while coming down to the ground state, some of the atoms will stuck in between the metastable state. Okay, so when they are stuck in the metastable state, here we can expect that the metastable state, the chromium ions can stay for longer time. Why? Because the lifetime of the excited atoms, okay, in this metastable state is in the order of 10 to the power of -3 seconds. Okay, so this process will continue. Number of chromium atoms will excite from ground state to any of the excited states, and within short time they will come down to ground state directly sometimes, or sometimes they will stuck into the metastable state. So once the number of chromium atoms in the metastable states increases, okay, so the population of the metastable state is considered as now increased. So that is what actually we can say now N2, and compare this population of the metastable state into the ground state, that is as N1. Okay, so what actually we want for stimulated emission process? So we want the population inversion. Initially N1 is greater, N2 is smaller. As the process continues for the complete excitation and de-excitation, so due to the accumulation of more number of chromium atoms in the metastable state, okay, N2 become greater than N1. So once N2 become greater than N1, what we call it as population inversion, right? So that is what required for the stimulated emission process. Okay, so once the population inversion is achieved, then what happens, the chromium atoms will be undergoing downward transition from metastable state to ground state. Okay. Now you just observe the process where the absorption of light energy takes place and where the emission of the light energy takes place. Here there is a induced absorption, right? So pump photons will be absorbed by the chromium atoms. So this process is called actually the induced absorption, and then the emission takes place due to the transition of atoms from the excited state to metastable state. But during this transitions, there is no emission of photons. That is why you call it as non-radiative transitions. It occurs very fast. So very fast non-radiative transition also we can say. Then, so from this metastable state to ground state, there is a transition takes place once the population inversion is achieved. Okay. So these transitions are actually radiative transitions. That means there is a emission of photons again takes place. So due to the stimulation, okay, due to the stimulation, we can say it is stimulated emission of radiation occurs between the metastable state and N2 to M to G with the population inversion N2 greater than N1. So such emitted photons is considered as actually the coherent laser beam. Okay. In that way, laser emission with the wavelength 6943 angstrom unit, 6943 angstrom unit wavelength is emitted particularly in the ruby laser. Okay. So this kind of emission of radiation is obtained by stimulated emission. Okay. Further, why we call it as amplified radiation? Because as per the laser acronym, we should call it as light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Okay. So that amplification of these photons are obtained between the laser cavity. So where is that laser cavity in the ruby laser? So between the two polished mirrors on either side of the crystal. Okay. So they will reflect back the number of photons emitted continuously from both the sides, to and fro motion, so that the amplification of photons increases. Okay. So that amplified photons will reach very high intense light beam with the highly energetic beam also. So such a highly energetic laser, highly intense beam is passed out from the partially polished side of the ruby crystal, not the 100% silver. 100% silver will only reflect the photons, whereas the other side it is reflecting the photons of course continuously till it reaches certain saturation state. Okay. Once the saturation is achieved, then from partially silvered side of the ruby crystal, the laser beam is emitted out of the ruby crystal. Okay. So such a laser emission will have the wavelength how much? 6943 angstrom unit. But in this case, we cannot expect the laser emission continuously from the ruby laser. Why? Because it is considered actually pulsed laser. Okay. Why it is called pulsed laser again? So because the pumping technique is not continuous. Okay. The moment you switch on the power supply, the helical flash lamp will give the maximum intensity of the light incident on the ruby crystal. So in a very short interval of time again. So that will be absorbed by the chromium atoms. So in that moment only this all kind of mechanism takes place and immediately a laser beam is emitted like a pulse. And further with the time gap again another pulse is emitted. Again with the time gap another pulse is emitted. So depending upon how many times the flash takes place on the ruby crystal, so that many times you will get the pulsed laser outside the ruby crystal. That is why we call it as pulsed laser. So we can see that how the spiking are obtained in the ruby crystal also. See the characteristic spiking of the ruby laser looks like this. Okay. So depending upon the power output, okay, we can see that number of spikes like this. Power output is nothing but laser emission in the form of number of pulses or spikes are observed with respect to time. Okay. So we can see that it is not a continuous laser. So if you consider the gaseous lasers, that is actually continuous laser. For example, helium neon laser is there. So that is what actually I am going to discuss in the next video. So that is actually continuous laser, but here it is a pulsed laser. Is it clear? Okay. So thank you for watching this video. So see you in the next video.